What's going on, everybody? Leo Cannell here with today's Seven Figures Club podcast. And today's episode, boys and girls, I know it's been a while since we've connected, so I'm very excited to share some powerful messages and things with you. And at the top of my mind is a question. And the topic for this episode is, why is it that immigrants often become more patriotic, more entrepreneurial, and in some cases much more successful than the average U.S. citizen born in this country? And that, my friends, is what we're going to take a deep dive into, and how that affects your ability to succeed as an entrepreneur when you can change your mindset from an entitled person who doesn't understand the opportunities this country affords as an entrepreneur, and what immigrants do understand that we do not. So that, my friends, is what today's episode is going to be all about, and I'm excited to dive in, so let's get going.
There are over 32 million businesses in the U.S., and over 90% of them will never break seven figures in annual sales. So how do we as entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs break into that seven figures club? This podcast will relentlessly share the secrets, strategies, and tactics I've used to create 3 multi-seven figures businesses and bring in even more successful entrepreneurs than me to share their inspirational stories and tactics to success. You can create your dream business and life right now. So buckle up and let's go.
All right, my friends, hope you're doing extremely well. It is July 4th, and Independence Day has just passed. And I hope you had an amazing Independence Day with the ones you love, and we're able to reflect on the first half of this year. That's the great thing about July 4th. It's kind of right there in the middle of the year. You get to assess, how have you done for the first half of this year? How have you executed? How has your game plan changed? Market conditions change, your team changes, your product, services. The market's always whispering something to you, and if you're listening, it's going to teach you something amazing. The remarkable thing that happened to me over the past 2 weeks was my family and I, my 5 kids, my wife and I, we went to Orlando, Florida. We did the Disney World thing. We've been to Disneyland so many times. I was excited to finally go somewhere different. Of course, Disneyland in California have been largely shut down, and it's kind of their favorite thing to do in that state. But Florida, luckily, has a different government and different ideology. And so we went, did the Disney World thing for 4 days there, because they have 4 parks. Did Universal Studio. My kids love Harry Potter, and did that for a couple days. There was a wakeboarding park called Orlando Water Sports Complex. That is an amazing place there that we went and checked out. That was awesome. And, Sean Murray, a famous wakeboarder, does some coaching out of that park. It's just a fun place. So my 2 oldest boys and I went there. And if you love wakeboarding, love the water, and that's what it's about in those hot, humid areas, you want to be in the water. So beautiful time. As we're in Orlando, our paths cross up because with this amazing couple named Abe and Sol. Now, Abe and Sol come from Venezuela. Sol's originally born in Cuba, and Abe born in Spain, and they both immigrated to Venezuela, and they were building a pretty awesome life for themselves. The reason we got to connect up with them was because of the fact that in Orlando, there was nowhere you could rent a car. We waited in 2 hours to find out that our van, there was 10 of us, me, my 5 kids, wife, and 2 of our nieces, and the son of one of our nieces. And so we were trying to get a big van. Everything in Orlando is booked out. You cannot find a car. The next morning, we got to find another one. And literally, we just calling place after place. And finally, I'm just like, screw it. Let's not get a van. Let's Uber everywhere. Let's find a great taxi. And so we connect up with this amazing couple, Abe and Sol. They've got 2 vans, and they drive us around, and they pick us up, when we need to be picked up, and take us to all the cool places there in Orlando. And it's just an amazing time. And what was most amazing was listening to their story, because they both ended up in Venezuela, met up, built a family, started a business. They're entrepreneurs. They're building a clothing business there in Venezuela and growing it. They've got suppliers in different countries, and they're seeing a lot of success. And in 1999, Hugo Chavez takes over the Venezuela government. And when he does that, he starts to implement a lot of social programs. He starts to nationalize. He starts to take business owners and entrepreneurs for granted. He starts to take away from them and believes that the government will be able to manage and orchestrate these businesses more effectively than the entrepreneurs. They nationalize a lot of oil and gas companies and pretty much have the ability to take over any business and steal it without any repercussions and do whatever they want. And that, my friends, is what they do a decade later. The country is in ruin. 95% of the entrepreneurs have left. And worse than that, there is no law and order. The criminals pay the government, the criminals pay the police, they do whatever they want. And one of their favorite things to do is to go and target an entrepreneur or business owner, drain the money out of their bank account so the business goes bankrupt, hold them ransom. And that's exactly what happened to my friend Abe and Sol. They take him and his wife and their two boys hostage. They stay in their house for a couple days until he's able to drain the bank accounts, get the cash to them. And then they proceed to shoot my friend Abe twice in the neck, twice in the arm. Luckily, he doesn't die. He's able to drive himself to the hospital after that happens. And then shortly thereafter, he and his wife have had it. They are out of Venezuela and they come to the United States of America, where they have, started additional businesses. They're very entrepreneurial. And most amazingly, just in the last couple of weeks, they both completed their citizenship. They are now citizens of the United States of America. And they're so excited, and they're not alone. I met up with people from Brazil, from Chile, from Colombia, Venezuela, Cuba, Spain, all these different countries. And there was one common theme, that they understood that the path to freedom is entrepreneurship, and the number one place in the world where you go to have the ability to create your dream life and become an entrepreneur is the United States of America. And so why was this such a powerful, experience and impactful thing for me? Well, because in the media and what we see in society today is this attitude of ungratefulness, of entitlement, and that the government should provide and be empowered to do whatever they want. And reality is, when that happens, every single time, not once in the history of this planet has it ever worked out well for society, for the majority of people. Case in point, in Venezuela, 20% of the population is in power. They're doing just fine. The other 80% are in absolute poverty. They are hungry. There's problems with food, with healthcare, and they are living a horrible life, and they are trying to leave that country. And you're seeing that in a number of other socialistic countries and economies. And the funny thing, the crazy thing, the mind-blowing thing to me was it took a decade. It took just 10 years for everything to go away and go to hell because of those terrible decisions made by that government. And so that, for me, very impactful, and wanted to share that with you. So what can we do about it? Well, number one, we need to not take those things for granted. Number two, I would highly recommend you go visit another country, and not just in the touristy areas. Go visit the country at large, a whole, and talk to the people. I've lived in other countries, including Chile and some other places, and you begin to understand the amazing opportunity that we have here that's taken for granted. And immigrants, when they get here, they're blown away by the opportunity, by the freedom, by the ability to start businesses unencumbered by government. And certainly that's more in some states, less in other states. Like if you compare, for example, Florida, much easier to start, grow a business. You can see what happened during the pandemic, and California ruins businesses. That's what they've done, and that's why there's been a mass exodus of businesses out of the states of California and New York. And so for us, we want to be supportive of those states that do support entrepreneurs, and we want to understand and really share this with others, with our employees, with our team, with our family, how important it is to protect these freedoms. And then we need to change our mindset. These immigrants come here hungry, no excuses, blown away by the opportunities and freedom. They move forward. Many of them don't even speak the language well, and yet they build these successful businesses at a much higher clip and rate. They take risks, understanding that these are nothing. These are not risks. The risks are staying in a country where you're going to be taken and kidnapped for ransom and held ransom, and your family and your health and everything you've built put at risk. And so that, my friends, is what I wanted to share with you today, the importance of this American dream, the reality of the freedoms we have here that are taken for granted, and the judgments and entitlements made by people who have never lived outside this country, who believe the grass is greener elsewhere, who think that socialistic, ideologies and government programs are going to make the world a better place, and it never has happened. And history repeats itself, and there's no reason to believe it would be any different. There's something powerful about a market that makes the decisions. The market decides if your product wins, if your service wins, not the government. When the government decides, it's inefficient. Case in point, let's look at SpaceX versus NASA. NASA spent $600 million to send out rockets to space, and then they dispose of them because they ruin them. SpaceX spent $60 million to build a rocket that can be reusable up to dozens of times, maybe even 100 times. So basically, for 1/100th or 1/1000th of the cost of NASA, SpaceX does it better. They do it more effectively because the government cannot do it. Bureaucrats don't make decisions. Bureaucrats are not resourceful. They don't put their own money on the line. They're wasteful, they're inefficient, and they're lazy 9 times out of 10. And as soon as we begin to come with grips with that, we'll begin to understand we need to empower the entrepreneurs in this country. So again, for us to join, if you're listening to this and you're trying to figure out, how do I get into the Seven Figures Club? How do I become one of the 7% of business owners that build a business that does $1 million a year? Well, it starts with thinking like an immigrant. It starts with being resourceful. It starts with understanding freedom. It starts with working hard. It starts with not being entitled. It starts with throwing out the excuses and understanding you're in the best place, in the best time period in the history of the world to be able to create your dream life and do it through a business and live the real American dream, and understand that it's alive and well, but it must be protected, and it can only be done by you executing and explaining and empowering the people you love, trust, and interact with, from your team to your employees to your family to your friends to your network to your community that you build. These are the ideas and values and principles that must be shared, that must be kept alive if we're to see the type of continued success that this country has brought to the world. All the progress and good things that have happened the past 250 years, the technology, came as a result of the freedoms brought to you by the founding fathers, who were imperfect but created an opportunity to better the world that's indisputable, irrefutable, and is absolutely amazing and magnificent. So my invitation, understand that, take action towards it, share it, and protect it. God bless you. We'll see you next time on the Seven Figures Club podcast.
Are you looking for more seven-figure secrets, content, or even how you can launch your own recession-proof business? Then check out sevenfigures.com. That's the digit 7, Figures.com, where we share more videos, stories, strategies, funding solutions, entrepreneurial education, and even the secret business type that's recession-proof. Thank you for listening, and if you're finding value in our podcast, please give us a 5-star and invite others to join the club.